Awesome. Welcome to Pitch Us. My name's Tim. I'm the author of the Pitch Deck book. Joined with me today is Jeff Erickson. Jeff, why don't you give a brief introduction?
Yeah, Jeff Erickson. I'm with a company called Forecaster that makes financial modeling easy for founders of startups like Yocal. And I'm also an angel investor and a startup advisor.
Awesome. We got a great company today. So guys, why don't you share your screen and then go ahead and pitch us?
You've got a friend that's visiting Salt Lake City for the first time ever. They're coming into town for one night and you want to take them out to dinner. So where are you going to take them? So what types of places are floating around in your mind?
Ready?
Applebee's, Lone Star,
Red Lobster.
Buffalo Wild Wings, Red Lobster. No, you're going to take them to a unique local gym that really showcases Salt Lake City. Well, those same businesses, they're losing. And this is a problem that matters because there's a wave of localism happening and Yocal's in a real position to own local because these local businesses actually do matter. This isn't just warm and fuzzy. They make our communities unique. They bring the character. They also drive key economic value and represent the real entrepreneurial spirit that makes America great. So why are they losing? Well, they're not losing because they have, they lack product or they lack the service or experience in many cases. And they certainly aren't losing because they don't have customers that love them. They're losing because they have a marketing problem. They can't compete with the budgets and expertise of the chains, the big box stores, the corporate stores, the Amazons of the world. They just get drowned out. On top of that, they are singularly focused on the wrong side of the marketing equation. Not that there's anything wrong with wanting new customers. They just have a flawed marketing mindset. What they need is actually loyal customers. So on the one side, the new customers, it's also the most expensive marketing. It's the toughest to track. And it's a real easy way for them to throw away good money when they should be focused on the loyalty side of things. In fact, 80% of most small business revenue is generated by the top 15% of their most loyal customers. In fact, Harvard Business Review did a study just 2 years ago. It showed just by increasing loyalty by as little as 5%, these businesses could see as much as a 25 to a 90% growth in top line revenue. So what they need is they need to get customers coming back more often and spend more per visit. And there's also a reason that all the most successful chain restaurants and corporate retail stores have very robust loyalty programs. They already get this. Well, Yocal, we can give them both.
Yeah, so let me introduce you to our solution. It's a co-marketing platform, but it's specifically for local business marketing. There's really two primary layers to this. First is the standalone loyalty program we implement for brick and mortar businesses. The second is our ability to get them new customers, but to do it through digital cross promotion. So before I explain how it works, I have to share one kind of astounding statistic. Bain and Company did a study a few years ago. They surveyed customers who went to a restaurant for the first time. What they found was, of all the people who claimed to have a positive experience, only 30% of them ever came back for a second visit. 70% of those first-time customers that had a good experience did not come back. What the answer or the question is why? And the answer is they have so many options. There's so much in front of them all the time. That's what this loyalty program solves. So it's automated and it's text-based, meaning you use your cell number to join. It's fully branded to the brick and mortar business. So if you love a bakery and you walk in there and you join, you will get a text message from the owner. There's automated touch points built in here. So if I join today, I see a welcome offer. Tomorrow, I get a welcome back and a reason to come back in. It works like a digital punch card in that each time I check in, I can be earning rewards. And then the most clever feature in this is called the win back strategy, which is simply if that customer has not been in 30 days or 60 days or 120 days, they get an automated little tap on the shoulder with an offer and a reason to come back. Now, the most killer part of the solution is your ability to broadcast message any campaign to your most loyal customers. I'll just illustrate with one example. In early March, there was a really frigid day. It was like 4 degrees. And we have a loyalty program running at Karma Coffee in Omaha, Nebraska. With a push of a button, they sent out a campaign to their loyal customers. They had people waiting at the door before they opened, and they had a line out the door most of that day. So it just shows you the power that a loyalty program can have on the business that properly implements it. But this next component is what really sets us apart.
Yeah, so guys, let me ask you this. Have you ever tried, any of you guys ever tried a float, like a salt float in one of these sensory deprivation tanks? Okay, yeah, can you imagine how hard it must be to market that type of business? Well, that's exactly why we chose this pilot. So here's what we did. The concept is this. We use Karma Coffee and a float center, which is 4 doors down in Omaha, Nebraska. The idea is they have loyal customers at Karma Coffee. Let's say you check in there all the time. It's your favorite coffee shop. And about the 5th or 6th time you check in, you get a text like you see in the middle. It's an MMS from the owner of Tracy Page at Karma Coffee, and you happen to know her. And it says, hey, Tim, thanks for being a loyal customer of Karma Coffee. We appreciate you. As a big thank you. If you've never done a float, here's a $50 gift certificate for a free float. Thank you for being our loyal customers, and thank you for supporting other local businesses. So that's the concept. That's what we tried. Well, let me show you what happened. So I mentioned how hard it must be to get people to try a float for the first time. We managed to get 68 new customers to walk through the doors of that float center in 7 days. I asked Angela, the owner of the float center, I said, Angela, under normal marketing circumstances, what would it take for you to get how long would it take to get 68 new customers at the door? She said it would take months. And here's the best part about her true cost for those floats was $10. So that was money well spent. The cost to Tracy at Karma Coffee, $0, all goodwill. So we were really excited about that cross promotion because it was a tough business to get new customers in, and we managed to do it very effectively.
So one really important element here is that this is automated and it uses our own network intelligence. So when the business signs up for Yocal, they can simply X out businesses they for some reason don't want to cross promote. So a coffee shop does not have to cross promote with a coffee shop. If some business is just totally misaligned, they can X those out. Other than that, it's in the hands of our technology to automate these introductions of customers from one business to another. Just to spell out what the secret sauce is here, by giving businesses what they really need, which is loyalty, and introducing this idea of new customers at a really low cost, what we're doing is combining these two things in a way that causes some really powerful network effects that are really critical to our business model.
Yeah, so the network effects, it's really, as Dave just said, it's a game changer, but here's how the network effects happen and how it impacts our business model. So every business that joins Yocal, that comes in and launches a loyalty program, not only are they bringing their business to the table, but they're also bringing all of their loyal customers, making the network more valuable. And then every new customer that joins at any one of these businesses also adds more value to the network. Then by adding the cross promotion feature to this, it has a dramatic impact on our business model because it can drive our CAC down by as much as 70%. So why is that? It's because the business owners start to introduce us to all of the other businesses that they know in the area, and more importantly, the businesses that they want to co-promote with. And then on top of that, because these businesses are implementing these loyalty programs, they're incentivized to build them up so that they can be part of the overall network. And this product becomes super sticky for them.
So how do we make money? Really simply, the brick and mortars pay a subscription, a monthly subscription. That's the SaaS part of our model. They pay on average $150 a month. But again, they're bringing in tens of thousands of local loving consumers who we can introduce to other businesses. What that does is it gets other business types involved. So anyone from a landscaper to an artist to a dentist to a massage therapist can now essentially join this network, and they pay to play. If we look at the market opportunity, it's large, right? It's intuitively large. There's literally millions of businesses, small businesses out there. But when we break it down, we find 40 cities across this country that are perfect for Yocal. And amongst those cities, we gather about 500 paying clients per city, and we have about 20,000 paying businesses per city. That's really the target market that we're focused on. If you were to look at a kind of high-level financial path, what we're looking at is very much a flywheel approach, where we're trying to nail it, then repeat it, then scale it. And the goal is really, the focus is really on those 40 cities to get there in the next 3 to 4 years. So a slow start to get everything nailed and then get to those 40 cities.
Yeah, so what does the competitive landscape looks like? Guys, there's two businesses that are really doing a component of each part of what we're doing. There's 5 stars. They've been around since 2012. I'll talk more about them in a second. They do digital loyalty and text rewards platforms. And there's a company called NIF. They're out of Boston. And it's the same concept of giving free gifts to loyal customers to go check out other businesses. However, they aren't leveraging text technology to do it. So Yocal is actually the first to combine the best of both of those in a scalable way. And then on top of it, we're building a meaningful brand.
So our go-to-market playbook, we're super excited about it because we just did it twice. So we just launched Tucson, Arizona, and Omaha, Nebraska. And basically we install a movement marketing machine, we call it. We go out and we do good in that city. We build a massive audience and we build essentially a free marketplace. We leverage all that goodwill and that exposure because all the business owners know who we are, they like us, and they trust us before we ever go launch Yocal. So when we step foot in that city, we kind of had the red carpet rolled out for us. We get 100 early adopters on, 100 businesses on board before we launch any product. That takes the risk out of launching for us. They prepay a year, and then we launch Yocal. The backstory is basically Bobby and I met in Austin. We were working for an Austin-based startup in 2018. Long story short, we were helping hundreds of small business clients with their marketing across 5 different states. We were brought in to prepare that company for a large venture round. Bobby was on the sales side. I was on the customer success side. And we realized we had a strong yin and yang. And we actually decided to launch our own startup about 2 weeks before Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID and all these shutdowns started happening. Basically, the nuclear bomb dropped on small businesses, which was COVID. What we did was we went out to do some good. We thought just for a few weeks, we'll go do good, create a support local campaign. But really that turned into something far more impactful and far more strategic for what we're doing. We took this movement we had nailed in 3 cities, Chicago, Omaha, and Tucson, and we exported it across the country. And we actually road tripped through 68 cities, met with hundreds and hundreds of business owners along the way. And it really warmed up these cities for us to be able to go launch Yocal. We now have 200 prepaid paying clients in Omaha and Tucson as of March of this year. Oops.
Guys, just real quick, obviously Dave is here. He's been a part of 3 different tech startups with 2 exits. He led product and adoption of vending tech that's being used in vending machines on thousands of machines across the country. I have been in sales for 30 years, sales leadership, working for Fortune 500 companies. I've spent the last 15 years of my career in the startup space. Most recently, I led sales from a SaaS-enabled co-marketed community-based product. At the time, we had 0 branch penetration. By the time I left that company, we were the 5th largest combined branch network in the U.S. And our 3rd co-founder couldn't be with us today is Joe Kenny. Joe is he owns 316 Strategy Group in Omaha, Nebraska. He is a marketing and marketing guru that has spent the last 25 years of his career in this local business space, specifically with restaurants.
So we're currently doing an angel round. We're raising $500,000. That's going to allow us to fully penetrate the 2 cities we've launched, to continue to develop on the product. But most importantly, it's to fully demonstrate the revenue potential of this combined loyalty program with cross promotion and show the metrics and the growth potential with those other types of businesses behind that. So that's what we're doing over the next, we're trying to close that end of May.
Oh, Dave, do me a favor. Guys, I just, this is really relevant because this just happened 6 short months ago. Remember the company I was talking to you about, 5 stars? They do digital loyalty and text rewards platforms. They were acquired just recently by a company out of Europe for $317 million. Over the course of their 10 years, they had raised $120 million. Most importantly, at the time of the acquisition, they had 12,000 businesses. I think it's probably aggregate using their system, and then 70 million consumers, which I know is aggregate. But the reason I bring those numbers up is that Dave and I think we can get to those numbers in the next 2 to 3 years. So I wanted you to be aware of that. There has been some activity in this space.
Thank you, guys.
And that is all.
Awesome.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
So let's just start off. Jeff, do you have any questions for the company?
So the one question I did want to ask you guys is maybe walk me through a little bit more on how you go into each of these cities. And is that scalable? It sounded like you go into Tucson and into Omaha, and you do like a service campaign, or you're kind of out there in the market. What does that look like again? And is that scalable?
Yeah, so we call it a free marketplace. It's not on our platform, it's actually on Facebook, but it's thousands of local consumers exchanging recommendations daily for local businesses of all types. What that does multiple things for us, actually. It does cost some money and it takes some time, but it's mostly viral in nature. You mostly have to kick it off and then it rolls on its own. But it allows us to crowdsource a lot of data. We get to find out who's who before we ever show up in the city. We get to scrape all these locally owned independent businesses, because it's not an easy category of businesses to identify. We think it takes about 6 months and costs about 25 grand total to get the movement marketing kind of fully functional in each city. We have launched it across the country because there's one element you can't manufacture with building trust, and it's time. We needed to get it started and have time ticking and rolling so that we can share with people just how long we've been at it in their city.
Gotcha. Very interesting. And if you're just doing 40 cities, then you'll do one in each one of those. And so if you're looking at $25,000 per city, that gives you a pretty good idea of at least the marketing costs there.
We do kind of consider them kind of hubs, right? With different smaller cities as spokes. So we don't feel like we have to do it in every city necessarily, but those beachhead cities for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Lots of questions, but I really want to get to why we're here, and really that's to help you guys with the presentation itself. So why don't we start off with some of the things that we liked? Jeff, go ahead and, what did you like about the presentation?
Yeah, well, first off, I thought you guys actually did a really good job presenting. Tim and I have said this before. We kind of discourage having multiple people present at the same time. I was going to put that as kind of a negative or something that maybe you want to think through. With that said, I think you actually did a pretty good job. It wasn't super distracting, but ultimately I would probably say maybe use one. So anyways, that was feedback. I was kind of weighing that back and forth. I started off going, no, this isn't going to work. And it's like, oh, they're kind of making it work. And maybe, I don't know. At the end of the day, I'd probably have one of you present. That's just, it'll be interesting to see what Tim says. I've heard him say something like that before, but okay. I thought it was actually very clear on, the problem. And I loved how you brought in the stats. You had Bain, some data that you brought in from there. It was really interesting. 30% of customers that come, that have a great experience still don't come back. I thought that was powerful. And then as you got into like the win back strategy and how you've got the automated tools, that resonated. I thought it was really good. In terms of the other things that I liked is, as you broke down the cities or how much you have to get, it seemed obtainable. And so it was like, okay, I could see getting there. I'll get into some of the things that we can improve on, but I'm trying to think if there were some other things. I like that you ended with your ask, and I really liked how you wrapped it up. I don't know if I would have ended this way with that piece where you brought in the acquisition. I thought that was really powerful, and maybe do that before your ask or whatever you did. It actually worked because it caught my attention. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I guess that was a good thing. So we'll leave it at that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So on my end, I think you guys both, this is very rare where two founders can both pitch. So you guys both have that capability, which is really, really cool. Very rare in the pitches I've seen. So, which is nice is if one of you is busy, you could take a meeting with somebody else, and you guys could both carry it. Like Jeff meant, I would recommend just doing one person. One thing to think about, and I'm seeing this a lot lately, you guys are looking at a separate screen. So your eyes are literally like over like this direction for us. We're still human and we like to look at your face. So something to think about. And this happens a lot with people, but you guys did a really good job. The format was pretty good. Overall, like it was clear what you guys were trying to accomplish. Your guys' branding is really good. Even though it's very simple, very simple is better. But yeah, overall, I think you guys did a great job. And we can get into the feedback now. So yeah, I wouldn't really change much actually. So Jeff, some of the feedback.
Yeah, the one thing is sometimes when you did switch, I mean, you guys did a great job again on putting that whole thing together. But I found myself also asking, okay, what are each of these guys' roles? And you kind of went through and defined it later, but I'm like, okay, so you know, why is Dave talking about this and you're talking about this? I wasn't totally sure on each of your roles. And so if you are gonna both pitch together, maybe define that up front. It's like, hi, I'm Dave, I'm the CEO, and this is my role, and this is, you know, co-founder, and this is his role. Just so I'm not wondering, because I was kind of going, okay, I'm not sure why you're talking about this and you're talking about this. Anyways, some advice that goes away if you just have one person pitching. And then let's see, the other thing I noticed on the title of the slides, they were really small. It's just up in the corner. It almost looked like it was like a reminder note for you guys. I don't know if I'd make that more prominent, but it's like, this is what we're talking about. Just something I kind of thought about as I was going there, as, you know, I don't know, it almost looked like a reminder note to me, like, oh, this is our ask slide, or this is our how we make money.
It was actually meant for you guys, but it was just really small.
Yeah, that's probably right. I think if you maybe you make that more prominent, this is what we're talking about here. The other thing that I noted was on the financials, I wasn't totally clear, and I know it was probably in there, but you've got that one slide and it's got your financials in that chart. And you went through it really fast for one thing, so I wasn't able to you know, pull it all in. But I didn't really grasp where you're at in terms of your revenue and what it's going to look like. And I would almost have a chart. I know, you know, everybody has their hockey stick graph and all that. You've got to back it up, but I want to see, where are you going to be in, you know, 6 months from now or 12 months from now, revenue and customers. Where are you going to be? And then where's it going to be from there? And where's it going to be from there? And when do you get to that 40 cities or whatever? I want to see that all lined out to say, okay, this is the market opportunity. Because ultimately in your market analysis, it starts out with this huge 220,000 companies or something. And then it whittles down into your TAM. And then all of a sudden your SAM is like super small. And I was like, you know, initially I was like, oh man, how are they going to make money? It's like, they're only going to have 40, you know, key hubs, but it didn't totally translate, if that makes sense. I might present that a little bit differently, because my initial take was, wow, you've got this huge market. Oh, maybe it's not very big. Oh man, it's not very big at all. When in reality, ultimately 40, you know, beachhead clients is actually a pretty massive market for you guys. Anyway, so those were a couple things. And Tim, I'll let you kind of chime in.
Cool. Yeah. So, like I said, I think overall you guys did a great job. Things that I would think about. You started off the pitch with the kind of a rhetorical question, you know, which I answered, right? Red iguana locally. I don't think that's a great idea. I think later in your pitch, you guys talked about you guys. And I would have loved the beginning to know about you guys. Like, kind of, why did you leave this other startup that seemed to be in the similar space? You know, kind of navigate that. I'm sure there's reasons there, but like now I'm like, man, why did these guys just bail on an ad tech company if now they're going to do their own? Like that seems kind of strange. So be cautious on that conversation piece. But again, rhetorical questions can be good, but keep in mind, like you might not get the response you're looking for with those. That happens quite a bit.
A question
Like,
there, Tim, because would you, when you guys asked that, I know Tim answered it and I was about to answer it as well. And it became, I wasn't sure, would you want somebody to reply to that? Tim, obviously you did reply.
yeah.
Is that a good thing? Or like you said, do you make it more a rhetorical question in that regard? Because I kind of liked it in some ways because it got me thinking, it's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't. Because when you started talking, it's like, I wouldn't recommend like just a franchise store when I come to town. So I think you got the point across.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it differently. Like, here's a different thing. In some pitches, the questioning usually waits to the end. In other pitches, people will ask throughout the middle. So if you're opening it up for conversation, you're also opening it up for us. Like we're just listening because that's what we're trying to do here. But you're also opening it up in that way for us to interrupt you in the pitch because you literally asked me a question. So it's not a bad thing. If it makes sense, do it. But the worst part about it would be is if you don't get the response you're looking for. So you could do the same thing. You'd be like, there's a restaurant you always take your friends to that come to town. I'm already thinking Red Iguana, whatever the things are, Lucky 13 here locally, right? Like, so you can prime that also without asking the question.
Good point. Because then Jeff comes in and says McDonald's, and you're like,
yeah, you're like,
wrong answer.
Yeah, you're like, man, I take everybody to In-N-Out. And you're like,
yeah,
which happens in Utah, right?
No,
like,
that's a good point.
Yeah. So a couple other things. I think your financial slides don't have a ramp, and I think that's what kind of Jeff was getting to. Your numbers look fine. Taking a step away from the pitch itself, and I'll say, you guys, the pitch was good. It's the space that's the challenge, not necessarily the pitch, because ad tech can make really good money. One of the things that I would really focus on is how you're going to get sales. You spent a lot of time on the solution part of it and why, but it's really a feature, in my opinion, where it's like cross promotion. So MindBody kind of does this already, right? Like you can go into yoga and you can find all the discounts for other, studios and things like that. So I would say like they're more your competition like than maybe a Yelp, for example. So think about the industry as a whole when you're doing the competitive slide. And if that the co-branding or whatever you guys are going to call it is really the feature, build out that a little bit more through the solution part, because all the other stuff people have done. You're also in a very competitive space, and restaurateurs hate spending money. So like, I think really focusing on your guys' ability to acquire the customer. Like you guys talked a lot about, like, you go in there, you do this Facebook thing, you spend some money. Like that's actually kind of interesting. And you're like, we've done it twice and we're going to do it again. Maybe spend more time on the sales process for this particular venture than necessarily problem solution, which is what normal companies would have to do. But I think that in this case, I need to know more about you guys and how you're going to acquire these customers, because they're very, very difficult to acquire.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they're. So the other thing is, you guys have these 100. I want to see the growth metrics from you launched in March to May. I know it's only a couple months, but like, let's say 6 months from now, like, what is your ramp to 200? What is your predicted like loss on that? I know they're on 1-year contracts. Did you make discounts? Like, I'd like to kind of have an idea of the overall health of the customer itself, because again, most of us know this is a hard space, but if you own it, it can be very, very lucrative. And then another thing that I would be cautious about is, you brought up that thing at the very, very end. You should always end on the ask slide, but you talk about that acquisition. Jeff and I do angel investing. We want 100x returns, right? So if you can show me that path, like that showed like a 3x return to the last investor, not super interesting for an angel investment, right? So I know they've raised a bunch of money. And so you also told us that you guys have to raise 120 million to be successful in that same conversation. Not necessarily true, but that's what those guys had to do to be successful. So we see this a lot in marketplaces, right? Like they have to raise a bunch of money. So just be very cautious about the acquisition. You can just say this company sold for $300 million and we're like, sweet.
Yeah,
So
it's
a little
funny you
bit.
say that, Tim, because when I said it, when I had it on there, I'm like, we don't need to raise. I should be like, we don't need to raise anywhere near that much money to get to where they're at. The interesting story about 5 Stars is we really stole a lot of stuff from them early on. In fact, we had an ex-employee of theirs that consulted with us for a bit just to help us with what we were doing. And honestly, I used to run into him, and then I stopped running into him. And Dave and I were joking about it. If he had come to me and said, "Hey, Bobby, did you hear that 5 Stars was acquired?" I would have been like, "What, for like $20 million?" Like, because they were gone and they were in bad verticals. And anyway, it just really surprised me. So that's great feedback, Tim. I appreciate it.
The one thing there I did like is, I mean, I would say the number of customers is relevant because I mean, it shows it's obtainable. It's like, okay, we can get there. And I like what you said, we can get there in 2 to 3 years. That caught my interest to say how. I want to know how you get there in 2 to 3 years, because, you know, if you can do that without, you know, the raising money thing, could get a little distracting there.
I don't know what they did with $120 million. To be honest.
But if you can show us how you get there with raising, you know, less, and here's our funding plan. It's like, we need to raise 500 now, you know, another 2 million here and 10 million. It's like, and then we're there. It's like, oh, that's awesome.
And I think that goes back to your strategy of growth, right? If it's 25K to launch a city, you can just quick do math, 25 times 40. I get the plan. It's either going to work or not work. And then you also run in that the growth map that you can show us, like, hey, look, we got 100 to start with. We don't go in until that happens. And then this tends to be our growth in that city to our path to 500. And you're like, okay, cool. I see how 500,000 today is going to get you whatever, we're going to make up things, to 4 cities. You should have about 150 per city. We can start running the math really quick, and you're going to walk us through that anyway. And all of a sudden you're like, this is actually not a bad idea, right? Like from a mathematics point of view. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yep.
One other thing I wanted to bring out is I didn't time this, Tim. I don't know if you had how long it was.
It was a little long, probably like 14-ish.
Okay. Yeah, I think, and I don't know if we make it very clear up front, but you know, 10 minutes is kind of, we probably ought to start saying that, Tim.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I would, you know, I would have like a 10-minute pitch and a 7 and a 3 and just prepare those. So that in any pitch environment, you're able to quickly do that. But yours was a little bit long, and so we might have to find ways to trim that down.
Awesome. So it's coming down to the final question, and that is, based off of what we saw today, Jeff, would you like to take these companies to due diligence?
So yes, I would actually have you come through, and the biggest reason is because I want to dive in to find out how you get to the 40. That doesn't mean I'm going to invest. It means that I wanted to know more. So you did leave me saying, okay, I want to dive into the financials a little bit deeper. Maybe I'd ask you those questions a little bit more, but maybe I'll do that in the second meeting. But I think I'd take a second meeting with you. You caught my interest.
Yeah, so for me, actually, I would not, because of the same things Jeff's just said. Like, there just wasn't enough for me to be like, these guys know what they're doing. I like your backgrounds, but I wish I would have felt it more like these guys know how to sell. They know how to get in there. They know how hard this market is. And so for me, I was like, there's lots of people doing something similar. Like, I need to know how you're going to tackle the market.
Very good.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. You know, if you guys need help with pitch decks, definitely, come to us, see what we can do. If you need help with finances, look at Forecaster. And again, like I said, thank you guys so much for pitching us today.
Tim, Jeff, appreciate it, guys. Really do appreciate the feedback.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.